Welcome. We're Empower Oversight with our whistleblower, Tim Mattson. Tim, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, thank you, Bobby. My name is Tim Mattson, and I'm the Chief Regional Attorney in the Kansas City region in the U.S. Department of Education, Office for Civil Rights. And I filed a whistleblower complaint with the United States Office of Special Counsel concerning activities that I observed in the U.S. Department of Education. It's hard to believe, but that was almost 2 years ago that I filed my complaint, and we're just now reaching a resolution. When I was in private practice, I used to tell my clients that no matter how long they thought a case was going to take, it would undoubtedly take longer than they expected. I would have to say that it's a lot harder when you're the one actually going through it. I'd like to thank a couple of people as my case has finally reached a resolution. First of all, I'd like to thank Tristan and Bobby and the attorneys at Empower Oversight for representing me. This case never would have gotten off the ground and certainly would never have reached a conclusion without all of their help and support. I'd also like to thank the Office of Special Counsel for opening my case and for referring it to the U.S. Department of Education, and for bringing much needed transparency to the events that transpired here. I'd also like to thank the General Counsel's Office and the U.S. Department of Education for investigating my complaint. And finally, I'd like to thank my wife for her support and encouragement during what's been a long 2-year process. I'm not going to speak really to the substance of my case. That'll be up for Empower Oversight to explain to people. I will testify either in court or before Congress if I'm called to do that. I did not set out to be a whistleblower, but as Edmund Burke said, the only thing that's required for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing, and I just didn't want to do that.
Thank you, Tim. Tristan, I know this case is really complicated, but will you give us a 2-minute version of the case?
Absolutely. So at the beginning of the Biden administration, they came in and the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights had the responsibility to interpret Title IX, the guidance that relates to how public institutions avoid discrimination between sexes. And the new Biden administration at the time issued guidance and basically imposed their gender ideology as it related to transgender, treatment of transgender individuals, as it related to how public schools maintain public spaces for boys versus girls. And 20 states challenged the Biden administration's guidance, and a judge in Tennessee ordered that they cease and desist from implementing that guidance in those 20 states while court challenges made their way through the system. Unfortunately, the Biden Department of Education decided to ignore this court order and violated the injunction by continuing to apply their guidance, by forcing their gender ideology views on local school districts, and in many cases by bullying them into consent decrees or other agreements when those local school districts were under threat of investigation by the federal government. So Mr. Mattson coming forward and helping to expose that is significant, and understanding that the Department of Justice completely disregarded these court orders, and that there were a number of individuals at the department who were responsible for that, some of whom still remain at the Department of Education.
Tim, do you have any regrets coming forward?
No, I don't.
What advice would you give others who see wrongdoing and want to come forward?
I just say you need to be prepared for a really long road, and there's some things that you're really going to need in order to be able to be successful. I'd say, first of all, you're going to need counsel, and I was really fortunate to be able to find Empower Oversight early on in this process. You're also going to need other people to corroborate your testimony and what you have to say, and I was fortunate to have 2 people that I worked with who were courageous enough to tell the truth about what we were seeing and experiencing in the department. And then lastly, you just have to be prepared that it's a long road, and know that you're ready for that.
What would you say helped you most through this process?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's a really long process. It's been almost 2 years, and I think with it taking so long, it's easy to feel really discouraged. It's also easy to feel really lonely in the midst of it, in the sense that, it's not something you're really talking about. And then also, even the folks who know that you filed something, they don't really appreciate exactly what you're going through or what it is to be working in the middle of it. And so kind of in the face of that, you're really going to need support and encouragement. It just takes up a lot of attention and emotional energy to keep going. And I was really fortunate to have an extremely supportive spouse and also family. My mom and dad were just really faithfully praying for me through this whole process. And I really think that in some ways it just feels like a miracle that we've made it all the way to the end. And so I'm really grateful for all the people that have supported me along this journey.
You are a lawyer by trade. What was it like being on the other side of the case?
It's a lot different being on the other side of the case. I'd have to say that. And it's my first time ever experiencing that. I think as an attorney, you're paid to represent your client. And so people know that your role is to be an advocate. And so if people, don't believe you or view you through that lens, you're kind of prepared for it. I think that as a whistleblower, when you feel like people don't believe you, that's difficult. Or when you feel like people are misrepresenting who you are, either that you're just, you're a, disgruntled employee, or you are on some sort of vendetta, or, have an axe to grind with people, when that's not true. I mean, one of the hardest parts of being a whistleblower is that, the people on the other side are people that you know and that you like and that you enjoy working with, people that you have a great working relationship with, and maybe even hired you. And that it's not coming from a place of being angry or upset with anybody. And it's hard when you feel like what you're doing is misrepresented or miscast. And so I'd say those are two things that are really different than being outside counsel, and that are hard about going through the process.
Tim, you may not want to speak much to this, but when the Office of Special Counsel initially required a report from the Department of Education, the Biden administration at the end of their term issued a report that really tried to brush this under the rug. How did it feel to you to have what you brought forward minimized in that way when you knew the facts on the ground?
Well, people can go and read my response to the first report, and they'll know exactly how I feel about it. I felt like it was outright dishonest, frankly. So and I think that was fully expressed in what I wrote.
How important is it to you that the truth is now fully out? Anyone in the public can be able to see for themselves exactly what happened during the Biden administration.
I think that transparency is really the most important thing, and I've worked really hard to create as much transparency as I possibly can in terms of shedding light on exactly how everything that I witnessed transpired, and providing as much explanation and documentation as I can, and so people can read that and judge for themselves exactly what they think.
Bobby referenced as an attorney how this was perhaps unique for you, but most, of course, all federal employees swear an oath to the Constitution. You also had, oaths of candor and duties of responsibility to the bar. How did that factor into your decisions to come forward here?
Well, I think as an attorney that practiced, it's helpful because in the back of your mind, you're thinking, could I stand in front of the court and explain what I'm doing right now? And that helped guide my thinking on it. And I mean, I have wanted to, and you know this, Tristan, I mean, I've wanted to call the court for 2 years, just be like, you're not going to believe how people are handling this. But, there's a process for whistleblowers to go through. And we've tried very hard to go through that process and handle everything exactly the right way that's supposed to be done. And that has taken longer than I hoped. But, I think we have done everything the very best way we can to try to follow the rules and regulations and guidance for addressing these types of things.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your courage and coming forward, Tim. and for helping to shine a light on these abuses of the law. I know many people will be grateful for it. Very few people understand everything that you went through, but we are certainly grateful for your courage and for your decision to stand by the law.
Hey, thank you, Tristan. Thank you, Tristan. Thank you, Bobby. And thank you for all of your help in this process. I really appreciate it.